Welcome to Cody in the Cinema. Today I'm discussing the Burmese Harp. Now this was released 1956. Connie Chikawa directed this, and Francis Ford Coppola was really a big proponent of the film. You'll hear him talk about it in different interviews and stuff. Of course, the director of the great Godfather film. I love my steelbook of The Godfather. And I love that Coppola has had such a warm reception to this film. I think that's probably part of why we have it in the Criterion Collection. But he's championed other Japanese film greats like Kagemusha, The Bad Sleep Well. I did a video on The Bad Sleep Well some time ago and kind of how that helped inspire parts of The Godfather. But this is a really tender film. It's sort of an elegy in my mind for the dead. It's not quite the same energy as something like Come and See, which is probably the most famous anti-war film besides maybe Paths of Glory in the Criterion Collection. There are explosions and there is violence and stuff like that, but a lot of it's very calm. The songs kind of lull you to sleep. I recently watched a few David Lynch pictures in Mulholland Drive. Really, those images come to the forefront of your brain and they stab at you and they poke at you and they stay ever present on your mind. Whereas the Burmese Harp, the images in this film kind of sit in the background and just sort of make you sad and morose. It's a very effective film in that way, but if you haven't heard of it, an Imperial Japanese Army regiment, so they're in this process of surrendering to British near the end of World War II, and there is a, how do you say this without spoiling it? There's a character in here who sort of gets involved in the peace treaty, the process of mending fences, however you want to put it. And he has to go to these soldiers who are kind of held up in a cave, and he has to try to convince them to lay down arms. And in that process, there's a really beautiful, haunting shot that you get inside of the cave. It's one of the great shots in any war film history. And then throughout the film, we meet a character who's sort of a pacifist kind of monk who has a curious monkey, and we hear all kinds of different music that suggests that this is a long, drawn-out conflict that everyone is kind of tired of, and there has been a lot of death and destruction. One of the best scenes of the film, we see two sides kind of come together in a sing-along, and that might sound corny or cheesy or unearned, but it's not. It's as if everyone is so tired of war that they just want to sing, if nothing else, to try to find a little bit of healing in an abysmal, awful situation. The first time I watched the Burmese Harp, I didn't have it on a big screen. I was distracted. Don't do that. When you sit down to the film, especially if you get this gorgeous 4K restoration, try to turn your mind off to other things. It's really a film where you want to have your phone down. You want to have your errands done. If someone is doing something in another room that's distracting you, wait. And watch this film in silence and in quiet, if you can. Because it's definitely a film that builds off of other, silence around it. I think that out of the anti-war films, this one is kind of special because it isn't bombastic. It is quiet, and it can be a little underwhelming in a way, actually, when you first see it, because it just doesn't bombard you with death is bad kind of images. There are fields of and funeral kind of things, and I'm talking around that spoiler there, and there are certainly, you do see death and destruction, but something about it is almost subtle, and it's all the more haunting for it. I think that the Burmese Harp, out of films you should own, so Come and See, I don't have a copy of that great anti-war film. I've seen it. It was a 5-star for me, but I don't really want to watch it again. It was just a really tough experience. The Burmese Harp is something I enjoyed kind of looking at scenes again, particularly certain scenes that I like to see replayed. And I think it's a great piece of physical media to own if you are already into this kind of genre. It's probably one of the highlights of the genre. But it is a slower moving, black and white, meditative sort of film. So if that's not your thing, you probably won't enjoy it. And to be honest with you, you have to have a real sense of empathy and humanity to enjoy the film. You kind of like, you kind of can't passively watch it is what I'm saying. Because I think the first time I watched it, I wasn't like really tuned into the situation and the historical context. If you are, and you take your time with it and you're not distracted and you're really able to put yourself in the men's shoes, I think you're going to find something pretty close to a masterpiece here in that way. And I'm really glad that like Francis Ford Coppola had talked about it, because I probably would have never really looked into the film. There is a companion piece to this that I'm also going to try to cover from the director. I think it's a companion piece. I don't know yet. We'll see when I put that video out. But as far as the inside packaging goes, I love this. I love this picture of this sort of like religious imagery that you see in the film. It reminded me a little bit, that part of it, some of the religious symbols you see reminded me a little bit of the great film The Horse Thief that Martin Scorsese was a big fan of from the 80s. And I love The Horse Thief. I think it's such a beautiful film. The essay in this is really, really good. There are, of all the essays I've read, this one's like not super long, so you can kind of really hold on to the individual parts. It's easy to digest. Yeah, I would kind of say, sometimes I read aloud out of these. I'm going to kind of say that for you to read. But yeah, you should probably just own this if you're into these kind of films. The cover, I remember like looking at the cover and being a little underwhelmed by the cover, but I actually think looking at it again, the cover makes a lot of sense to the story, to the tone. And so I think it's just a good overall piece of physical media. And I really like the restoration here. 1956, same year as The Searchers, which I have a big poster of The Searchers behind me. Real good film year there. So get it if you're into this stuff. I think it's an essential own, but like I said, if you're not really into like, slower moving any-war films, I don't know if you're going to like it, to be honest, but hopefully it expands your mind. And if nothing else, maybe you like, if you're a Godfather fan, maybe you can kind of see some of the influence on Coppola or other films of his, like Apocalypse Now was almost certainly had some pieces of inspiration there, right, from the Burmese Harp. Anyway, if you like the content, if you like the review today and you want to click the thumbs up and help grow the channel, that'd be great. Tell me your thoughts on the Burmese Harp or any other films, any war. If you have thoughts on Come and See or any of those films, let me know too in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. I cover lots of movies and Criterion-related content here on Cody in the Cinema.